Hello, and welcome to another video on the Big Bar Lab channel. Today we're going to be learning how to use the microtome. So let's start with turning on the machines that we're going to use. So we have the machine here that's going to be freezing the water. That's going to be loaded into our stage that is going to freeze our brain that we're going to be putting on top in just a minute. So I've already turned it on, so it's already freezing the stage at the moment, and the switch is located on the back of the machine. On the right, it's just a switch, and you'll feel it. If you don't see it, turn it right on. So once you turn this on, you're also going to turn on the microtome itself, and the switch is located again on the far right corner of it, and again you just turn that switch on. So once you turn that one on, you're going to see this little screen here. Turn on, and we have a feed, a trim, and a counter setting, and you can like refresh the counter. So let's say you actually move your blade, then it'll count 1, so you made 1 slice, and you can just refresh it, using that button. And as you'll notice, the feed and the trim both say 20. So the slices that we're going to be cutting today are going to be 20 microns in thickness, which is what we want. And the way that you change that, whether you want to change the feed or the trim, is this button down here. So if you want to switch from the feed to the trim, you just press that button. And if you want to switch the thickness of your slice, let's say you want it to 25 or 30 or whatever it is that you're looking for, you kind of just move this button right here. And then if you wanted to change the other one, press that one, and it'll change in increments of 10. Alright, that's it for today. We're going to keep it at 20. And then you always want to have it set to automatic, so that way the stage automatically raises after every single slice, so you're not automatically you're not manually doing that after every single slice, because that gets annoying, and also you risk messing up your slices. Alright, so next thing you want to do is make sure that the stage itself is completely flat and not tilted in any way. So a way to do that is by using these knobs right here. So right now it's locked, so right now, whether you move it or not, it's not going to be moving the actual stage. But to unlock it, you're going to just turn this over, and this knob itself, other than just moving this cable like I totally just did, you're going to be using this one, and as you'll see, the stage itself starts moving this way or that way, so like back and forth in a sense. And then the smaller one moves it side to side. So right now, I'm going to try side to side. So right now, I'm going to just try to make it completely straight, so that way our slices come out straight. So once we've established that the stage is in the correct orientation to our blade, we can start to prepare the brain that we're going to start slicing today. So today, we're going to be slicing a thigh experimental brain. You'll see it beautifully perfused, You'll see it in even clear fashion once I take it out of this glass bottle. Okay, so what we're going to do is take our brain out of here, gently place it onto this little aluminum foil thing. Alright, and so you kind of want to prepare it. So what we're going to do is slice it directly in the middle, because we want to expose the injection site and the frontal lobe area of the brain as much as possible without having to cut so much. So this is also a matter of saving time on our slicing today. So we're just going to go ahead and make a cut. Alright, so now we don't have to cut through this part, which really isn't necessary. Alright, so now what we're going to do is basically dispose of this part. So we're going to use Alright, and then we're going to prepare this frame because we're going to mount it onto our stage. So what we're going to do is take our OCT, which is optimal cutting temperature glue. Basically, this is going to be used to stick our actual brain onto the stage, and it freezes it in place. So that's why it's really good to have this on hand. Alright, so what we're going to do is pick up our brain here. And put some OCT onto our aluminum foil. Whenever it decides to come out of the actual bottle. Okay, whatever. It gets stuck on there sometimes. Okay, that's good enough. So you take your brain, just kind of place it onto your OCT. You always want the flat side down because you want it to be level with the stage. Alright, so now what we're going to do is, because it needs to be frozen, we're going to use our cryostat, which is in the next room, to freeze it with the OCT. Okay, so once you have your brain completely frozen and you have mounted it onto the stage of your microtome using some OCT, and it's fully on there, their platform is completely parallel to the blade, everything's even, you can go ahead and unlock your blade, which you can do so by using the switch on the right hand side of the blade. So you'll hear a click that says it's locked, and then when you undo it, then it's good to go. Alright, so we're going to leave it in the unlocked position. Then you're going to uncover your blade. The important part, this is your blade. Be careful around it, don't put your hands near it, because you do risk cutting yourself, considering that we are cutting our slices in 20 microns today. It's pretty sharp. Alright, so then the next part that you're going to do is you're going to bring your blade forward, and you're going to have it right on top of the brain. You're going to set it right on top of the brain, and you want to see how close your blade is to your actual brain, right? So as you can see, there is kind of a distance. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the side buttons that I showed you guys before. We're actually going to use a new button, which is this one right here. So this one before was utilized to change our feed and trim measurements, but instead right now we're going to be using this one, and this is to bring our stage up or down. So we're going to be pressing it up to bring it up. Alright, so we're going to want to bring our brain up just until it sits right underneath the blade. Alright, so at that point it's right underneath the blade, there's no gap, or at least there's a minimal gap, and then we'll bring our blade back. Okay, so at this point right now it's just a matter of cutting a few slices until we see that the slices are coming out complete, and then we could start mounting once I see that they're coming out pretty nicely. So when you're cutting, you want to make sure that you're going at a good speed, not too fast, not too slow, and that your cuts are smooth every single time, because you risk tearing them if you start hesitating throughout your cuts, or if you're going way too fast, or if you're going way too slow. That's why it's very, very important to keep your cutting techniques consistent. Okay? So right now, because these are just kind of cuts to kind of get rid of the excess tissue that you don't really want, these aren't as important. Get closer to your target area, those slices get really, really important, so you don't want to mess those up. Okay. And remove anything that kind of comes up. You guys might not be able to see it, but a little bit did come up. So we're just gonna, so right now what I'm doing is kind of just bringing the stage up a little bit. So every time that you move the blade forward, the stage rises. So I kind of just brought the blade forward a little bit, and you'll hear a little click that kind of says that the stage is coming up. So I brought it forward a few times to bring the stage up a few times. So that's going to allow me to cut more into the tissue of the brain, so that way, we can move this along a little faster. All right, so not a lot came out that time. So what we're going to do is just give it a few more clicks. Hopefully you guys can hear that. And then bring the blade forward. And now we see a little more start to come out, but it's not a full slice yet. And again, this could be avoided if you were bringing the stage a lot closer to the blade initially when you were trying to get it as close to the blade as possible before. but just, you know, to make sure this is fine too. Okay, now we're starting to get all slices. What I like to do, you don't have to do this. Everyone kind of has their own methods of, you know, cutting. Is I kind of just like to wet the area that I just cut. Personally, it helps me lift up the slice that I just cut out a lot easier because it's wet, and it helps me reduce the risk of actually tearing my slice. So I kind of like to just wet the slice that I actually just cut off a little bit, and then with the wet paintbrush, and I personally like to use the really thin brushes. Some people like to use fatter brushes. I think this is just better. This also helps with the whole mounting procedure that I will show you guys later. So yeah, I like to just pick it up. And then I'm just gonna place it into the water real quick just to see how it came out. So because we're towards the back of the brain, the two different sides of the brain aren't totally connected right now, which is fine, that's expected. The cerebellum. Okay, scratch that. You're just gonna cut out the whole part. It's like not even, you didn't even hear me say that. No, I meant it's fine. I'm smart, I promise. I used to cut in the back. Okay. And before you bring the blade back to continue your slicing after you wet it, I kind of just like to make sure that I'm drying it off again, because if you have a wet blade, that kind of ruins your slicing. Again, you want your blade to be completely dry when you actually slice. So I like to keep my blades wet when I pick up the slice off of the blade, but you have to make sure to dry it once you go into slicing it. So that's when I take like another brush and kind of just dry it off. You shouldn't have too much water on there anyway. So let me place it in here so you guys can actually see how these slices are coming out. And again, since this is towards the front of the brain, these parts aren't actually totally connected yet. So you're gonna see them kind of separated, because again, the mouse brain has those two like frontal lobe things kind of sticking out like the olfactory bulbs. So that's kind of what we're seeing right there. Is that not it? Okay. Anyway, so let's bring it back. I'm gonna bring it back to what I was saying. Anyway, so yeah, because they're not sticking. The reason they're not sticking together is because we are cutting at the area of the olfactory bulbs. So those are two separate bulbs that are not actually connected together. So that's why you're kind of seeing separated tissue. But once you get deeper into the brain, obviously it'll start looking like a whole slice. So don't be alarmed. So definitely be aware of what area of the brain you're cutting, so you don't think you're messing anything up. So I'm just gonna go in there and dry it again. Shouldn't take you too much time, considering that you're not gonna have that much water on it anyway. So once you're cutting, you could do this either immediately after cutting your slices, or you can have like a set of wells and stuff like that to organize the slices to cut later on if you want to be saving them and stuff before mounting them onto an actual slide. But right now we're going to show you guys just quickly how to mount them right on to a slide after you've cut them. So you obviously need slides. This is just a well of water to discard any broken, torn, or slices that we're not going to be using. And then here we just have PVS, and that's where we keep the slices that we are going to be using. So right now I'm just going to show you a quick technique that I use to mount a slice onto a slide. So here we go. So first things first, I personally like to use a really thin brush. It's kind of wet right now. I like to use a really thin one without any spokes, like kind of, let me just dry it up a little bit, without any loose like hair sticking out or anything, because that reduces the risk of you actually tearing your slice. So it's pretty neat, you know, straight and everything like that. So I like to use really thin ones, but again, this is for your preference. If you like to use really big ones, you know, like by all means, that's whatever works for you. But I would stay away from using brushes that are like this because of the method that I use, again, with slicing. Some people use 2 brushes when mounting. Again, that's your preference. I just like to use 1. So I'll show you how to do it. So you pick up your slice. Right now we're going to be targeting this slice right over here. Again, you want to make sure that you're orienting the slice the proper way so that way when you mount it, it kind of rolls off, because we're going to be doing like a rolling action here. So first things first, you want to just dip your brush in your PBS, which is your phosphate buffer solution, and you're going to just wet just a small little, you know, area onto your slice. It helps when you're removing the slide from your brush. So we'll just start by gently, super gently, teasing the slice, bringing it up. And again, you want to make sure that you're not going to pick it up. You kind of want to pick it up like upside down. That way when you're mounting it right side up, because that's how you're going to be rolling it. This gets very, very tedious. So you just want to have a lot of patience when doing it. Okay. Once it's on your brush, remember where exactly on your brush it is. You're gonna move on to actually mounting it. I like to kind of just move it this way. That way when my hands are off the table, because I like to get as low and parallel to the table itself as possible. So then I kind of remember where my slice actually started, so I know it starts on this side of the brush. So I'm gonna kind of just roll it a little bit to the beginning of the slice, and then I just press down onto my slide, and then I'm gonna roll it off. And then it's just, you know, on there. So again, you kind of just want to whatever area you're going to be moving your slice to. So you kind of just tease your slice to get it into the correct position. So I kind of want it over here. And then all you got to do next is dry the area. You could use a chem wipe. You could use another brush. I personally like to use brushes themselves to just dry it off. I don't know, that's just personal preference. I'm literally just using a paper towel. And then you just kind of go for it. This might be a time-consuming technique, so you could, again, proceed with the chem wipe, but this is just my personal preference. Drying it up, you definitely want to focus on drying the edges. So the edges of your slice, you want to make sure that they're actually sticking to your actual slide, because if these edges are not dry, then you're going to see over time that the slice itself is actually going to start drying up out of your slide, and that becomes a problem when you want to proceed with staining or cover slipping, because you risk them just falling right off of your slide, and then you can't look at it under a microscope, and you'll have to redo the entire process. So you can avoid that by simply tapping and dabbing along the edges of the brain slice and making sure that any excess PBS is being removed. So yeah, just kind of keep dabbing. Maybe we could maybe have like a song on here or something with like,
yeah. I don't know what kids listen to.
Honestly,
It's like still the Baby Shark.
Baby Shark, do 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 do.
That in Italy, if you watch him.
Oh, there you go. Scenes of your future, maybe, possibly. Eat, sleep, neuroscience. Okay. So there is no more excess fluid around it, and even me just moving it, it's not moving, so I know that it's on there for sure. But you'll definitely be able to notice if it's not on there properly, because it'll start looking white. If it does start looking white, here's an example right here. Look at this slide right here. Slice. So this slice right here, the edges are starting to look a little white, you know what I'm saying? While these, there is no white, right? So that means that this part of that slice is actually drying up out of the slide itself. That will be an issue later on. So what you can do to fix this problem? PBS, man. You dip it in PBS just a little bit, you know, not too much, not too little. And you want to make sure that you're not going to dip too much onto your actual slide, because then you're going to have to dry up the entire thing again. So we kind of just very, very gently go in and just go for the corner. All right. And then we proceed to kind of just take that, and then we'll take it to the other corner. And then you'll just gently dab on whatever area is drying up. Again, make sure that the brushes that you use for this are not contaminated with anything or have been used for other things other than this, because again, you risk messing up your slide. So yeah, you just keep doing it until it's dry to your liking. Always be wary of any dust hairs that might appear nicely. See, look, now the white spots are gone. I'm telling you, man, if all else fails, put some PBS back on that. It'll work perfectly fine. Bam.
Nice.
There you go. I don't know if that's actually any better. There you go. If you have any questions or want an even more in-depth look at mounting, because it was a very brief explanation, we'll link a separate video down below. Highly recommend you check it out, especially if you're a beginner in the mouse lab, a beginner confusing, a beginner at mounting and standing and all that good jazz. We're here to guide you every step of the way. So definitely recommend you checking it out before risking you messing up any of your actual specimens for your projects. And yeah, comment, like, subscribe.